As mentioned in my short bumper video, the black and white segment I'm going to do now is on politics. There are several high points to this that I want to kind of dive into to help paint a overall big picture. So I'll try to move quickly, and even moving quickly, this should take probably upwards of an hour. So I'm fairly certain though that this will be probably my longest video, so I'll at least try to break it into two parts and have powerful themes throughout both sections. So don't just skip ahead and expect Cliff's Notes or anything. So I'll also break out certain segments into little separate standalones to really emphasize certain topics or certain themes. So to give a sort of abstract on this point before I dive in, the main point of this segment is to prove my hypothesis that the American Democrat Party is the wrong party affiliation to follow, just the same as the Republican Party is also equally, completely the wrong party for this country, and both parties have really outlived their usefulness. If I were backing a certain candidate, I'd probably have to follow Monty Brewster from Brewster's Millions and vote for none of the above. Furthermore, the office of the President of the USA serves as a puppet head job to take the focus off of real issues. I will also point out that while it's easy fodder to blindly attribute the problems in Washington to inept politicians, the bigger problem isn't necessarily at that level. The real problem is the American public. The vast majority of American citizens are corralled into one of two camps and assume that one of the two options has to be correct and will wage war against the opposite camp without any consideration that we're all in the same boat here. Lastly, I'll save the best for last in the sense that I'll finish up with an analysis of how ludicrous this obsession with trying to get involved with politics really is. I hope you stick it out and take as I take a different angle on this, as I do with pretty much every topic that I present. And I intend on putting a little more effort into upping the production value of this segment to really emphasize the points. And I believe that if I can get just a small fraction of people to open up his or her minds to new ideas, I could have big results. So the initial conditions of this particular segment should be laid out, as with any segment for that matter. A big problem that people fall victim to is listening to or watching someone without realizing if said person is at all qualified to be giving information on the topic at hand. So right up front, I'll point out that with my skill sets, my expertise, that I have my own bag of tricks, politics is not one of them. I have not exercised at any level in government. I don't have an educational background to support an in-depth political analysis, and therefore have little to no ability to discuss in-depth political concepts past the surface. In the levels of comprehension, I am the second lowest level, in that I don't know or comprehend a lot of political subjects, but what kicks me to that whole second level is I understand that I don't understand those topics. Now, take a big step back here with me and realize that while I am seemingly the wrong person to voice political tangents, in all likelihood, I am with 90+% of Americans in my comprehension of those topics. So there's the initial condition as it stands, that I have no basis or leg to stand on when it comes to intricate political concepts. I thought it was very important on this topic to point out my level of comprehension, because no one else seems to. And it's highly likely that where Sally at the coffee machine at the office gets her information from is probably totally invalid, and she's just regurgitating hearsay. So diving into some numbers to support my examination of a vast majority of people being ignorant to politics, less than 2 million people are federal employees in the United States, i.e. work in government at any capacity. That seems a lot of people, but when the total working age, i.e. people between the ages of 15 and 64, you see a total sample pool of around 200 million people. So conservatively, there is less than 1% of the entire U.S. population, adult age, that works for the government or works in any government capacity. So if you throw a couple percentage more on top of that for people that influence government, it's fairly fair to assume that 90+% of adults in the U.S. don't have any workings in the government. It is very peculiar then that so many people feel so knowledgeable or in touch with the fine details of government dealings, doesn't it? So diving down a level. As a lot of people have certain skill sets or certain expertise, so trying to be a master of every topic out there is generally a poor idea, as it generally results in holes in foundations of logic and gaps in understanding, especially with very dynamic topics such as politics. So I, for instance, try to understand what I am good at and I feel like I have a strong grasp upon, and I try to maintain that knowledge base, especially with dynamic subjects. So having an understanding of what you know and what you don't know allows for advancement in society when people excel at their particular niches. So having everyone half-ass everything results in everything being, well, half-assed. So now keep up with me on this, as I know this will probably resonate. Currently, my primary source of income is doing engineering work. I'm an engineer. I have a mechanical engineering degree as well as a nuclear engineering degree, providing a foundation along with years of applied foundation fortifying that foundation. Internal combustion engines, hydraulic systems, electrical systems, and thermal management systems are some of the big fields within engineering that I have proficiency in. So then keep in mind that I work with people who have been in the industry for decades, and they have a far stronger foundation built off of that expertise or experience, and historical progressions of systems is something that's really in their back pocket. So I am very good at what I do, but I don't make the mistake of claiming to be the be-all, end-all when it comes to engineering. I do know a lot, and then I comprehend probably more than 95+% of everyone else on what I do specialize in, though. So, when I bump into someone and they approach things with an open mind and a realization that they don't understand the inner working of a mechanical system, in which I do happen to understand, interesting conversations can be had. If I can explain a certain topic and have that person understand the fundamental concepts, I feel rewarded, and it reaffirms that I truly have a strong comprehension of that topic if I can turn around and kind of teach or illuminate something to someone about that particular topic. Now, that's not what normally happens, though. Normally, that conversation is someone that has zero understanding of the topics, and they throw around buzzwords at me. It's something they heard from a friend of a friend. It's never a back and forth dialogue on a topic, but a, hey, how come none of you eggheads have ever thought of X, Y, or Z? I read an article online about someone in their garage that did that, and they're going to make a gajillion dollars. The problem is none of you ever think outside the box to try to figure out these really smart things. So when you try to pick holes in the argument as to why what they are talking about won't work, it winds up just being a totally fruitless endeavor and a waste of time. They just chalk it up to me not really understanding what they're actually saying, or chalking it up to being some sort of conspiracy that everyone in the engineering community is in upon, and just we kind of keep that to ourselves. So I actually learned years ago that, especially if this is one of those conversations and it's someone that I have no history with and somebody I'll probably never have an interaction with again, I'll just plead ignorance. You know, it's the easiest way to save face, really. Oh, you want to hook up a generator to the wheels of your car to charge batteries to, in turn, power those same wheels when you're accelerating, so you have an endless supply of energy. Wow, that sounds like a really good idea. Yeah, I don't know why no one's ever thought of that. You're really onto something. Boom. Conversation over. I know that diving into why that idea is flawed is a completely fruitless endeavor, and it's not worth my time to argue with some ignorant tool for 20 plus minutes. Okay? So how many of you have a certain skill set or job that people have similar conversations with, and it's just a total waste of time? The mechanic who overhears the same stupid conversation from someone swearing that they only use high-octane fuel in his or her car because they don't compromise with the cheap stuff, or the random guy that starts one of those conversations with a member of someone in our armed forces that revolves around his or her buddy in the army who was over in Iraq and starts, shooting the shit and telling stories. Or the IT person that deals at least 5 times a day with people outside of work saying, hey, I had this problem with my computer, how do I fix it? As much as you'd like to tell the offender that they're an idiot or that you're not at work and you don't want to talk shop outside of the office, usually that's not what you do. Usually you just nod, okay. And the conversations revolving around non-combat zone experiences, or around combat zone experiences, that no civilian could ever have a really understanding or grasp of, that is not casual conversation material and is downright out of line to be discussing. That's not something you try to just relate with somebody about, and it's not small talk. It's offensive, really. So, I could delve several layers deep, for instance, into a plethora of nuclear engineering topics right now that really grind my gears, but what's the point? This particular conversation's on politics. So, just a little bit surface of this, politicians don't understand that field at all, nuclear engineering, and yet they'll blindly make policies and laws which they think are in for everybody's best interest, but in reality are more of an endangerment to people. Politicians are 100% responsible for adding restrictive regulations to the industry to stall research, as well as investigation, which could help make nuclear energy almost completely safe and idiot-proof. Integral fast reactors, for instance, the designs kind of really came about in the 80s and 90s and were spearheaded by labs such as Argonne National Lab, and that was shut down, or they were shown to be meltdown-proof. They're far more efficient than traditional thermal reactors, produce way less waste, etc. They're just that much more efficient. And they would have totally changed the entire landscape of clean energy in the US. And this started nearly 30 years ago. We'll leave it to ignorant politicians who were adamant to say no to anything nuclear just so ignorant voters would keep electing him or her, kind of put the kibosh on all this. And they killed any further research and passed laws and regulations forbidding this. So any climate change argument or oil dependence problems that we face could have been squashed at this point in time had level-headed people been making decisions based on facts and not opinions. Yes, we are, by now we could have an entire energy grid that could be clean energy based largely on nuclear power and then padded with wind and solar energy. So a long-term solution for waste containment as well is another issue that was funded mostly completely with Yucca Mountain. But with the long time frame of that project, it went through several election cycles, several politicians kind of coming and going along the way. It was only a matter of time before a couple of politicians tried making a name for his or herself, just put a stop to this. If all it meant was flushing a couple $100 million down the drain, whatever, as long as it gets them elected. So again, the ignorant, misinformed public voted for these politicians who swore they were going to do something about this nuclear waste issue, and they killed the project just to get political office. Congratulations, people. You wasted over 2 decades of thousands of people's time, hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money, and literally made the United States several hundred times more susceptible to a nuclear accident because the 30 plus years of nuclear waste stored at every single operating reactor within the United States was never meant to just hang out in fuel yards on site indefinitely. That was never the intention. So that's a real world snippet of just 2 small things within my particular field, nuclear engineering, where like the computer IT person or an auto mechanic or the armed forces man or woman who watches some ignorant upper management person making a bad call, or the public trying to hold a complex conversation about a topic that they don't have the first clue about, and it just makes you cringe. If you can relate, it seriously seems like just little children talking about something they couldn't possibly understand and calling you a doo-doo head. It's not you or me feeling cocky or superior to someone else. It's someone at the lowest level of comprehension that you see. They don't comprehend a topic in the least, and they don't realize that they don't comprehend that topic, and that's dangerous. But hey, when I bump into Joe Blow at Vaughn's and they tell me that they don't want a nuclear reactor in their backyard, or anywhere around them for that matter, because they don't want their kids glowing green, or growing a third arm, or some Fukushima-style accident, they probably know what they're talking about, right? So it's not a conspiracy, people. So coming kind of full circle then on my original observation of the initial conditions of this segment, I don't comprehend beyond the surface of political topics, and I know this, and I far and away believe that a vast majority of the American public don't grasp or really understand these concepts either. But here we are today. Everyone wants to tell you about how the Democrats are trying to take all the money away from working class people to give to welfare queens, or the Republicans are going to give all your money to big businesses and Wall Street fat cats so everyone will live in poverty and starve to death. You all sound like little children calling one another doo-doo heads, and it's just the blind leading the blind. Again, if everyone stuck to his or her given strong points, we could build the best machine or country possible. Instead, though, everyone chimes in with a poor grasp of every feasible concept, so we wind up with a very poorly operating machine, and it's obvious as every decade passes that the U.S. kind of keeps dropping in every single category of superiority or ratings compared to other countries in the world. We have Susie Homemaker choosing cylinder liners for this fictional engine with zero understanding of metallurgy, thermal profiles inside of a cylinder, the pressure conditions, flame propagation, etc. We have Dave the Carpenter designing the fuel injection system with absolutely no understanding of thermal dynamics, how to dial in a fuel map, how to, or deciding between low impedance and high impedance injectors, etc. Little details that are obvious to somebody that is actually specialized in that field. Then the chief engineer, let's say, on this project is a cashier come and go who has zero engineering experience but knows they can design the best engine on the market by using Wikipedia and Google. So right out of the gate, the people who are electing politicians are woefully ignorant but don't realize that. So I always hear things like little quips like, stupid people shouldn't be allowed to vote. When in reality, what people are saying, people who don't vote the same way I vote are stupid. So even though the same people are equally and obviously ignorant to the things they are talking about. So then we have politicians who have no motivation to do what's best for people, but just to get elected. So politicians will butter you up and tell you whatever you want to hear, so you will vote for them. And as ignorant and misinformed as you might be on a topic, they'll gladly make it their battle cry to solve an issue for you, even if it's not in your best interest. Sometimes a cure isn't terribly effective if it kills the patient. People want to feel like they understand what's really going on and feel camaraderie and sit back and complain that they know how to fix the problems here, and it's the damn Democrats that are screwing everything up, and vice versa. So if you sit on a high horse for either the Democrats or Republican parties, you are the problem. So politicians have foundations built with experience, less often now, the education, less often on that as well, to understand how the political system really works. You don't. This schoolhouse rock, how a bill becomes a law view in how government really works, is just laughable, as the system is far more complicated and there's a lot more to it than people realize, and you're delusional if you think that's really what's going on, if it's really that simple. If politicians didn't have extreme standpoints on every single issue and actually worked to find compromise with legislation to find what was in the majority's best interest, then as with any profession, we'd have a successful business or government. I don't have the experience, the foundation, the time, or the interest to understand what's really going on, and I bet you don't either. Picking up on a couple little buzzwords from popular media sources, from popular media sources on issues doesn't make you an expert, such as people like on Fox News swear that, here's a couple nuggets of information there. Now you know everything there is to know about this particular issue. No, it's a little bit more to that. There's a couple more levels. It actually makes people more dangerous knowing a couple little tidbits of information and not the big picture. Again, not understanding a complex topic and not knowing that you don't understand or comprehend that topic is what a large amount of the American populace is doing. You're all little children talking about a very complex subject with absolutely no understanding of what you're really talking about. And you just kind of look like idiots to people that are in the know. So if you take offense to me insinuating that you are an idiot, I apologize. But then again, I really don't. This ignorance and insistence on being right is what's caused this big rift and internal struggle between the majority of people in the US. Leave it to the professionals to effect change. You are trying to micromanage this country into the most dysfunctional system it can be. So the last angle of this particular notion is how things should work with professions. You don't need to know how a car's engine works to drive it, or to buy it for that matter. We, as the American public, want to find a compromise, find a car that's best for, say, fuel economy, power, storage, comfort, features, etc., and don't need to know all the specifics or details on how those little subsystems or topics really work. Letting a well-equipped group of engineers design this car to your specifications will not only realize all of your requirements, but will usually yield exceeding goals if an engineering team or a team of professionals is allowed to really work well together. So as the populace, there are plenty of directions to give for this vehicle, which will give the vast majority of people, and then you can have submodels and certain features for people, say, that are handicapped or need additional luggage space because they do a lot of traveling, etc., which politicians can achieve if they are allowed to work together to reach compromise to attain those goals. But no, right now you have Joe Public talking about how the engine needs to have Macusil-coated steel cylinder liners, even though they don't realize that what they're requesting is contradictory and unnecessary, and it just sounds stupid. But that person feels confident that they know what they're talking about, and that's what they need in this engine or government. Then you have two people arguing. One, that we need dome pistons to raise the compression ratio past even what high-octane pump gas fuel can safely hit, and then retarding the ignition timing to allow for using pump gas. So you really gain nothing and waste a lot of money and resources, and then you don't realize any benefits. Meanwhile, the other person is saying that's completely stupid, and we should be utilizing ethanol and then be using dish pistons to decrease the compression ratio. That way you can really advance the ignition timing and have no risk of detonation. Both people know a couple buzzwords and have a weak understanding of complex topics, but don't understand or realize that what they're asking for is stupid or just not quite right. But they'll argue tooth and nail that they are right. A professional in this arena would compromise. Assuming ethanol was a viable option in this case, they would investigate an ethanol injection setup, find a respectable compression ratio to aim for, and then they would match ideal volume dome pistons to achieve the static compression ratio they're looking for, and actually do spark hook testing to validate and tune the ignition to realize peak combustion efficiency and validate all those initial choices. Oh, that with the efficiency in design here and the savings, the money savings, you probably have some money left over to integrate, say, a NOx sensor into the ECM to give yourself that little extra element of safety in case lower octane blend of ethanol was used. So most people would have no clue what I was talking about, and those are fairly rudimentary concepts with internal combustion engine designs, and yet that's exactly how things work with politics. Let the professionals work out the designs. You're ill-equipped to do so, and are going to wind up with some mediocre and poorly performing design, and then you'll just simply blame the other person when it doesn't work quite right, because you assume that they are wrong when you are really just as wrong. Oh wait, that's precisely how our political system works right now, and people are the blind leading the blind, and they don't realize that they're just as wrong as the other person. Urgh. So politicians currently will fight to make the machine exactly how you want it, exactly how you requested, even though they don't understand what you're doing.